Hello and welcome to Back to School Night. I am Miss Rane and I teach your children Course 1. A little bit about me. I grew up in Morgan Hill and moved over the hill to study math and education at UCSC. I'm really passionate about art and math, and I find that I can really combine those passions in the classroom by making sure that everyone can access mathematics. I don't want it to be a obstacle for your children. So that's what I'm all about. Um, I really want to talk about these materials that your students should have at the beginning of each class. It would be really great if you could develop this as a routine at home. Your students are expected to have their textbooks at the beginning of class. All right, so they should have their textbooks ready to go at the beginning of class, as well as their whiteboard set, a pencil, and some graph paper. Please, right now, I want you to go just pause this video, and I want you to go check your kids' math textbook. They should have a sixth grade volume 1 textbook. Please make sure it doesn't say volume 2. They should have a volume 1 textbook. So pause the video and do that right now. Okay, I'm assuming that you checked your kid's textbook. Something else that is very useful for your students would be to have a few other colors with their pencils. I tend to use color whenever we do notes, just so I can highlight different things for the children, especially when it comes to diagrams and graphs. They may also need, sharpeners, erasers, if they prefer pens and whiteout, whatever materials that they will need for the beginning of class, they should have it at the beginning. But most important is this stuff over here on the left side. All right. I want to talk about some class expectations as well. Right, so I'm not going to go over all of these, but some of the most important ones are that your students are on time to class. All right, a lot of students are showing up very late for class. So please just check in on them more if you have the chance, all right? If they need to log on a few minutes before, that's just the best way to make sure that they're on time. If you can, try and provide a quiet place for your kids to study. I understand that's not always possible, but if you can, it really helps. Um, Make sure your child has headphones. It'll make it easier for them to speak up without causing a lot of echo for everyone else. Um, as far as presentation goes, wear appropriate clothing. That is just, as per school rules, let's, wear clothing that doesn't break any school rules. But, I'm not looking for your kids to be, completely, manicured and showered. I think that, as long as they are comfortable, and won't be distracted, then they are fine. And make sure that you're in camera view. I'm seeing a lot of students are doing Zoom school in bed, which is not healthy. If you're doing your school in bed, then that means that first of all, you're going to be in bed for a long part of the day, and that it's going to be harder for you to sleep, and you'll be sleepier when you're working. And finally, as far as respect goes, your students have been extremely kind and understanding. I have no complaints there. The only thing that I would really kind of want to mention again is to make sure that, your students are keeping themselves on mute when it's not their turn to talk, and that they know about the raise hand button in Zoom. I've shown it to the kids, but it might be a good time to just check if they know where that is, because that's really really helpful. Then I get a notification that oh, Olivia raised her hand, and so then when I get a moment, I'll call on Olivia and she can unmute herself. All right, so that's it for my expectations. And this Zoom expectations is posted in every Google Classroom. So if you want to take a look at it later, you can navigate to your child's classroom. And finally, I thought I would just cover some of the really important topics that we go over in Course 1 for sixth graders. Right now, we've started off the year with a bit of geometry. We are extending their concept of area. So a lot of your students, I ask them, what is area? And they say, oh, it's length times width. And then I ask them, why is it length times width? And then we're doing some math. So we've been pushing their knowledge of area of rectangles to be able to find the area of parallelograms. And soon we'll be doing the same thing for triangles as well as composite shapes. Um, and then we'll be moving on to some algebraic thinking. Uh, this is the year where we introduce what variables are. We'll also be talking about expressions and equations and how we build those, what is the difference between those. And we'll also be doing a lot of number and operations alongside working with expressions and equations. We're going to introduce the order of operations. Mr. Sapp and I like to call it BEDMAS. Many of you have learned it as GEMDAS or PEMDAS, what have you. We want to make sure your kids know what order to perform their mathematical operations. Another thing that we'll be doing is tightening up decimals and fractions. Now, I know that your kids have probably been learning decimals and fractions for the past few years, um, but history shows that decimals and fractions are hard. They're really hard for our young people. So we're going to keep working on those, keep, pushing their conceptual understanding of it so that those, fraction division and decimal division, all sorts of, those higher order decimal and fraction activities, we're going to make sure that they can do those. And one thing that I am excited for, and that I hope some of your children are excited for, is that this is the year they're going to learn about negative numbers, integers. We're going to talk about that other side of the number line. We're going to talk about what happens when we go behind zero. And finally, as far as our measurement and data or statistics goes, your students will be learning about mean, median, and mode, our central tendencies. And one of the major ways we'll be studying that is through creating histograms and analyzing them. So if you have any questions about anything that I just talked about or anything at all, the fastest way to contact me is by texting this number. And we can just chat over text, or we can set up a time to phone or Zoom call the next day. Just make sure you let me know who you are when you text me. You can also always email me. I will respond a little bit slower than if you were to send me a text, but you're always, free to email me if that is easier for you. So yeah, I am really excited to continue working with your students this year. I'm so grateful for the chance to get to know their beautiful souls and hear all their wonderful ideas. Even though, we are doing distance learning, I'm grateful that I get to hang out with them and do some math.